1997.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning is Carol Roth, and she's big time. I'm small potatoes over here. Carol Roth is big time. You know how I know?
How do you know,
because
Dan?
she was featured in a John Stossel production on a bunch of topics that couldn't be more relevant as we're in full 2020 election cycle swing. Like, the economy's doing good, but what's the Democrat socialist response? Sure, for the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. John Stossel tackles that and other topics on income distribution, and he relies on Carol Roth's expertise to fill in the blanks. Listen up.
It's true that some rich people have gotten absurdly rich. But the other claim that they got rich while the poor people got poorer is just a myth.
As we've increased the number of billionaires around the world, extreme poverty has actually shrunk down.
Former investment banker Carol Roth points out that anyone who pays attention knows that as the rich got richer, most poor people got richer too. Worldwide, more than 1 billion people rose out of poverty. Yes, the rich got even richer, but why is that a problem? Consider poor me and rich me.
I love this.
Over the past 40 years, we rich Americans got 200% richer. Lucky me. I got just 32% richer. I didn't gain as much as he did. But I don't see how I'm hurt. I'm 32% richer. And yes, that's adjusting for inflation. And it doesn't even count all the cool new stuff innovation gave me.
That's such an interesting point, right? The rich got richer as a percentage, but the capitalism is the rising tide that lifts all boats. And so the poor are in a better position too. They didn't risk as much. They didn't invest as much because they don't have as much. So they didn't reap the same rewards. And that leads to the second issue, which is income mobility. How those poor who start getting richer can then start getting richer at a faster rate than the poor.
Absolutely. And the innovations that have come with capitalism that have democratized technology and access to things that before were only available, forget about to wealthy individuals, to wealthy corporations. The fact that we've got smartphones that you walk around with that are basically supercomputers that connect you to all the information that has ever been created in time, that give you the opportunity to enact commerce, to take payments. It gives everybody a tremendous opportunity. And then add on top of that things like drugs and life-saving drugs and other innovations that have improved the quality of life. So not only have you gotten richer overall, the richness of the life that you're leading is also better as well.
More of the Wonder Twins, Stossel and Roth.
And here's another misleading claim.
A lack of economic mobility.
The lack of economic mobility.
Watching the news, you'd think people born poor in America have little chance to become rich.
A striking lack of economic mobility in America.
It's true that people with rich parents have a big advantage, but it's not like Americans are locked in. Economists at Harvard and Berkeley crunched the numbers and found most people born to the richest fifth of Americans fell out of that bracket within 20 years. Likewise, most born to the poorest fifth climbed to a higher quintile. Some make it all the way to the top. One study looking at that top bracket found
3 out of 4 Americans will hit that top 20% at some point in their lifetime.
3 out of 4 people.
Yes, there is the opportunity to have that mobility and to make an amazing income in this country.
Yeah, you make a good point, Carol Roth. And now we've got Carol Roth in stereo. She's here and she's out there.
Right. You got me with Stossel, you got me live with Dan Proft. I am everywhere.
But here's the thing. You know what inhibits the ability to be, as you just said, one of those 3 of 4 who makes it to the top 20 at some point in their lifetimes? Right. Incentivizing the disinclination to climb.
100%. I mean, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether it's through taxes or structures or, even just the zeitgeist of the fact that we don't look up to people who are successful anymore and say that's something that I aspire to, that I should just get something for existing. That is not good for the idea of economic mobility.
For more on this topic and others, we're pleased to be joined by Stephen Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist, chief economist for CNN. and nominee for the Fed Board of Governors. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
So how about this discussion of, you can't just have good growth because the Democrats just say, well, yeah, that's the rich getting richer and the poor getting poor. So you have to do second and third level analyses like we heard in the Stossel piece. So the 3% GDP growth, we can't crow about for too long because then we need to do that explanation Stossel's doing, at least the president does.
Well, look, one of the things I'm kind of proudest about in terms of what's happened in the last 2 years in this economic expansion under Trump has been that, according to the Wall Street Journal, a report that just came out about 3 weeks ago, this wasn't Steve Moore speaking, this was the news department at the Wall Street Journal, that the biggest wage gains in the last 2 years have actually gone to the lowest income workers. So actually in the last 2 years, the poor are getting richer faster than the rich are getting richer, which is a cool statistic. That's what we wanted, by the way, by creating a very tight labor market, a really good job market for workers, where they have the bargaining power now because there's more jobs available than workers. There's 7.1 million job openings today, and there's only 6 million unemployed people. So if my math is right, that's 1.1 million, more jobs than available workers. That gives workers a lot of power to go, if they don't like their current job, they can go down to the street to another. I mean, you saw what happened with Target. They raised their minimum wage to $13 an hour. Walmart, Walgreens, FedEx just is providing now $5,000 paid vacations to new workers to get them to come aboard. That's the dividend of having a great economy and a strong labor market.
Yeah, and amazing it happens without regulation. It is
exactly.
Yeah, it is interesting, Stephen. From my perspective, absent from the discussion about wage growth has been the incredible increase in benefits as a percentage of wages. Obviously, things like healthcare benefits, 401k, even bonuses are not counted in the wage number, and that has increased from 16%, years ago to it's like something like 40% of wages right now. Do you think we're due for a recalculation in the way that we look at wages to take into account these benefits so that people can better understand that they are actually doing better than the numbers that are reported?
Yeah, well, first of all, people understand, their own personal finances.
Oh, I don't think that they do.
Know, right? So, in other words, they know that what kind of benefits they're getting. They know what their wages and salaries are. They know what kind of pension benefits and medical benefits and so on they're receiving. And that's why, the number that really is devastating to the left when they make these arguments about, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. 71% of Americans now feel, that's according to the CNN, which is hardly, pro-Trump, 71% believe the economy is good or great, and they are positive about their personal, financial future. So that, that number holds up anywhere near that number for the next year and a half, Trump will win about a 40-state re-election landslide. People don't vote against prosperity, and they don't vote against policies that are working for them. By the way, there was a great analysis that was recently done on this issue of the rich getting richer, of the major dynastic families in America, the Rockefellers, the J.P. Morgans, the Vanderbilts, the Ford family, the Carnegies. And what it found was that over 2 generations, even the very, very, very richest in the world, after 2 generations, the wealth is dissipating.
Shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. There's a phrase for that worldwide. In Asia, it's rice paddies to rice paddies in 3 generations.
Yeah, the third generation always mucks it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what happened was this gentleman did an analysis because the IRS records who are the 400 wealthiest families in America. And they looked at that data over something like 25 or 30 years. And what they found is 30 years later, of the 400 wealthiest families, only I don't remember the exact number, but it was something like only about 40 were still in that category. So think about that. That means 90% moved out and new people moved in. And that's what you want with a vibrant economy. You want, you don't want an economy where you have just people living on, wealth and so on. You want new generations of innovation and products and services that take over for the old ones. And so John D. Rockefeller was probably the richest person who ever walked on the planet, and yet there aren't many Rockefellers left with much money.
And on the other side of it, equity, since that's the watchword of the left, with respect to taxation, Joint Committee on Taxation report shows the 2017 tax cuts reduced average federal income tax rates on people at every income level. So again, everyone saw a reduction, and that's another thing for President Trump to tout in terms of promises made and promises kept in 20.
Let me address that because it's a great point. So, and this is a point you guys were making earlier, that if you just look at the, after tax, if you just look at the tax cut people got, that was significant. That was about $2,000 per middle class family, which, is not crumbs. I don't care what Nancy Pelosi says. That means a lot to a family that earns $50,000 a year. But then if you look at increased benefits, because, a lot of companies paid more benefits to keep workers. And then if you look at things like the increase in pay that people got because the economy is doing better, we estimate at Heritage the average family got about $4,000 richer. That's a lot in 2.5 years. To have their incomes go up by $4,000 in 2.5 years. So we're off to a great start. And by the way, the economy is not slowing down; it's picking up. And incidentally, don't forget also the stock market is up 40% since Trump took office. So add the increase in pension accounts and 401k accounts. I mean, people are doing a lot better today than they were when we had a community organizer in the White House.
Now, Steve, I'm going to offer my services Ray Donovan style here. I understand you're having some problems with Senators Graham and Collins and maybe Ernst with respect to your nomination to the Fed board. Would you like me to get Rocco and Moose and fly out to D.C. for some conversations?
Well, look, the fact is, this is going to be about a 3-month process, and so we're just at the beginning stages of this. I think when I have my chance to actually go before the Senate and make my case about economic growth and how we can continue this phenomenal economy that Trump has created by stable money, by the continuation of reduced taxes and so on, I think people will be for me. I mean, the thing that's been disappointing about this whole process to me, guys, is that nobody has asked me about the economy very much. They know they can't beat me on my economic ideas, so they're digging up literally, Christmas letters I wrote 20 years ago that were, basically just spoof columns, making fun of everyone, including ourselves. And the left is so stupid, by the way. They take everything so literally that they're acting like, a spoof newsletter reflects my political views. There's another one I'll just mention that's on the news now. I think it's on the news today, that Steve Moore wants to get rid of child labor laws. Now, Dan, you've heard me talk a lot because we've been at events together. One of my pet peeves is I do think it would be very beneficial for the next generation to get kids working at an earlier age, a paper route, or working. People will work on a farm. They start working at 11 or 12 years old.
I made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the kitchen of a day camp when I was 12 years old. And you know what happened to me?
How old were you?
12 years old. I was 12, and I never.
That's a violation of the child
and
labor
I
laws.
never.
You can't have you making sandwiches at 12 years old. I mean, this is exactly my point.
Well, Steve,
everyone knows me. Knows I'm not talking about. And I did say, I was just kind of. I like to make points. Everyone knows I'm not saying we should get rid of child labor laws. What I'm saying is we should allow people to, kids 13, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old to work a little bit. It'll pay off in big time, when they're in their 20s and 30s. And the evidence is very clear on that. The earlier you start getting a work ethic and learn job skills, the better off you're going to be. And so there's, oh my God, Steve Moore wants to go back to sweatshops and so on. I mean, it's just such an exaggeration.
I can tell you, Stephen, that what I learned from making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in a day camp when I was 12 is that I never wanted to make another peanut butter and jelly sandwich as a job or frankly as a human being ever again in my life. It was the most motivating thing that ever happened.
Now, by contrast,
I took a year off when I was between my freshman and sophomore years of college, and I worked for a year, and I worked in a warehouse. And, it was a great experience, but I came away with it from the same thing. I better get serious about my schooling because I don't want to work in a warehouse for the rest of my life. That's a good lesson of life.
By contrast, I was forced to start caddying when I was 11, and I had my parents imprisoned. So, everyone takes it different. Steve Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist, chief economist for CNN. Steve, thanks for joining us, and we'll continue monitoring your nomination
Steve.
there. Thanks, Steve. He joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is